welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to join you as part of the data science learning community, and I'm really excited to be here. And today we're going to spend an hour talking about getting a website set up with Quarto. So this is sort of the setup that you'll need to follow along. We'll use Composite Cloud to kind of make sure we've all got the same version of RStudio and Quarto. We'll get some content that's going to make it really easy for us to get up and running. So please do that. If you click on that website project, it can take a little while to spin up. You'll see like a deploying for a little while. So do that now so you're ready to go when it's time to use it. Before we get much further, I just wanted to remind everyone about the code of conduct. So you would have agreed to this as you came in on Zoom, possibly, hopefully. But you agreed to this as by being part of the community. And that this is really just an agreement between all of us that this space is going to be open and welcoming, and that we're all pledging to make participation a harassment-free experience for everyone. So it's a reminder about that. And then if anything comes up during this workshop, reach out to me or Lydia and we'll help. Okay, so welcome. My name's Charlotte Wickham. I'm a developer educator at Posit, and Posit's the company that brings you RStudio, the IDE. It also brings you Quarto, the tool for publishing. I'm based in Corvallis, Oregon. I used to be affiliated with Oregon State University. That's why I moved here. My background's in statistics, so I've been a long time Markdown user, but now completely a Quarto user. And we're joined today by 4 TAs who will be helping you in the sort of breakout sessions where you'll be working on things. And they are Derek, Priyanka, Federica, and Colin. And you're going to meet them very shortly. So the way that this will work in general in this workshop is there'll be a period of me talking and demoing and sharing my screen. And then you'll head into breakout rooms where you'll get a chance to work on something on your own, but you'll have a TA in that room with you, so you get a chance to ask questions or troubleshoot if you need to share a screen, that kind of thing. And we're going to jump into that right now. So I'll sort of walk you through the instructions here, and then Lydia will help me get you into your breakout rooms where you'll spend some time getting to know each other. So the goal of this Your Turn is just to get familiar with the breakout room process and the members of your room. So you're going to head to your breakout rooms, and I want you to introduce yourself. So your TA will kind of help facilitate this. You need to let people know your name, perhaps where you are geographically, and then just share something that you hope to get out of the workshop today. And if you get through all that, just check that you've done those setup instructions, that you're all set to go. I've got a guideline here of 5 minutes, so keep your intros not too wordy, not too lengthy. And I'll send you a little message that's kind of saying like, hey, we're coming back in a second. And then you'll all come back and we'll join back here in the main room. Sound good, everyone? Okay. So Lydia, I think I've put you in charge of sending everyone to breakout rooms. So press the button and we'll see how it goes. So it'll probably take a little while just for everyone to trickle back in. Welcome back to the main room. I think we're almost all here. Okay, so it's always a little, I know for me, it's like always a little stressful doing these breakout rooms because there's a lot of like stuff happening, but I hope you all made it to your room. I hope you got to meet a couple of people, and they'll be sort of the people you hang out with in the breakout rooms for the rest of the workshop. And I think everyone's back, hopefully. Gabby, I hope that's an intentional being disconnected. It'll send you back when you need to. So you should be okay. So we'll kind of push you into the breakout rooms and then you'll be able to come back.
I just clicked my space bar and then I didn't mean to, and then it took me here. So it was my fault. No worries. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think, so what will happen in future, now I know what the settings are, is that I'll close the rooms. That'll be your warning that you've got a minute left. So feel free to use that minute. And then once that 60 seconds is up, Zoom will kind of kick you back here. So that's sort of the warning, but if you're in the middle of a sentence, finish it up. say goodbye to your breakout room, and then we'll see you back here. All right, I had something I wanted to know. I've just got to remind myself what it was. Oh yeah, okay. So I'm a little curious if anyone isn't using Posit Cloud today, which was an option if you carefully read the pre-work. If you aren't using Posit Cloud today, could you just put in the Zoom chat which IDE you're using? So if you're using RStudio locally or VS Code locally or whatever, just let me know in the chat. Okay, so let's kind of jump in. So what are we going to do today? We've got about 47 minutes left of our hour together, and our goal is that we're going to create a website. And this is kind of my bullet points of the process we're going to go through to do that. I won't belabor it now because 47 minutes isn't that long, but generally this is how it's going to work. I'm going to take a turn. I'll show you slides like these. I'll do some live coding to demonstrate things, and then I'll turn it back over to you. It'll be your turn. I'll put you in the breakout rooms, and you are going to work through a set of instructions. When you're in that breakout room, that is the place to just like unmute and ask questions. If you run into a problem, feel free to share your screen in there. The workshop session itself is being recorded, but those breakout rooms we will not be recording, or at least they will never be posted. They'll be cut out of the recording. So that's kind of a safe place. If you have questions, you can ask them in the Zoom chat. If you're in a breakout room, I think that'll be just by default within your breakout room. So if you've got something to ask me, ask it when we're back in this main room. And ask questions in Slack. I will stick around in Slack for the foreseeable future, like a few weeks at least. So if we don't get to something, or if you like what you saw today, you work a bit more on it, and then a question comes up, like just ask away in Slack. I will be happy to answer. Okay, so the first sort of point I want to make is that when you're building a website in Quarto, you don't have to start from scratch, right? You don't have to start from nothing. A great way to get started is to use a template, and that's what we'll be doing today. So I sent you over to Posit Cloud, and I'm going to go over there myself now. Oh, I should have done this earlier. Let me go back to my site, because this is going to take a little while, maybe. This is what you might have experienced. You go to Cloud, and then it takes a little while. Okay. But what you'll see once you get there and once that project loads up is it's an RStudio project, and it's already got some files in it. There's nothing really magical about those files. They're just a set of files we're going to use to get started as our template. And the one thing I did to get those files into your Posit Cloud projects before the workshop is I ran this one line of code on the terminal. And that's enough to get those files. All it does is it runs off to my GitHub repo and copies all those files to your project. So if you want to start from scratch again with a template, you could run that. But we're going to sort of get started with this template. So I'm over here now in Posit Cloud 2, and this is the set of files I'm talking about, right? These are the set of files we're going to explore today to see how to use them to make a website. And I'm going to kind of walk through this demo. So if you're following along with the slides, they're on the website. These are my bullet points I want to hit, but I'll be mostly just working over here, showing you what I'm talking about and then checking I do it. So I'm going to open up this file, index.qmd. So it's a .qmd. That means it's a Quarto file. And Quarto files have this standard structure where they start with what's called the header. The header comes between these 3 dashes. So there's an opening 3 dashes here on line 1, closing 3 dashes on line 16. And then everything else after that's just Quarto content. The first thing I'm going to do with this Quarto document is actually preview it or render it. And in RStudio, that's this arrow that's called the render button. If you're in VS Code or Positron, it's called preview, and it looks quite different, but it does the same thing. So I'm going to click on that. Behind the scenes, Quarto's running a whole lot of code to like take this and build a website for us and then show it to us. If you're in the cloud, you get this, possibly you got this pop-up blocked message. You can just try again and it'll work. And what it's done is it's popped up the preview in a separate tab. I actually tend to not like the setting when I'm teaching, so I'm going to change the setting. If you want to do this too, follow along. There's this cog in the top of the editor, and instead of preview in window, I'm going to select preview in viewer plane, and I'm going to hit that render again. It's the easiest way to do it. It just means that the preview is going to pop up here. So I've got everything on one screen. It's a little bit easier if I'm sharing with you guys. Just one thing to be aware of with this, like now this area, the viewer is so like physically small. You're going to see more of a mobile view than a desktop view. This is like one of the like great features of Quarto websites is you don't have to do anything to enable this, right? It just automatically you get sort of a mobile view that I'm seeing here in the viewer and over in that tab. I'll probably have to pop it out. In the viewer, there's this button here show in a new window. That's just a way to pop it out into that full screen mode. This actually looks a little bit different, right? This is the desktop view. Okay, so all we've done is rendered this index.qmd. And this file is a little bit special. So index.qmd, Quarto's going to turn this into index.html. So that's going to be the home page for our website. And the thing to note right now is like this is all just happening sort of as a a private preview, right? We're just previewing what this would look like. It's not a website that exists anywhere. We're just seeing what it would look like. Okay, let me check my bullet points. Yeah. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about the structure already. We have this header at the top of the document between the 3 dashes and then some content after it. And our general workflow is just going to be, we're going to make edits to these files, and then we're going to take a look at the preview again. And a lot of this you might sort of be able to just guess at how it works, right? So there's a title here. Right now it says Alicia. I'm going to change that to Charlotte Wickham. I'm going to save the file, and then I'm going to re-render it. I tend to use the keyboard shortcut to re-render. You can hover over it to figure out what that is on your system. Right, and then I've changed, like this website has now changed. It's Charlotte Wickham, data scientist. I'm not just a data scientist, I'm also an educator. Right, so a lot of these values in the YAML header are being, are creating the content on this page. But the content is also, like the content of the QMD file is also showing up on this page. And this particular Quarto document, this particular index.qmd is making use of this thing called an about page template. So an about page template is just a way to combine some of these options we're setting in the header of this document with the content we've got in this document into like a nice layout, a nice kind of landing page or about page layout. One of the nice things about these about page templates is that there's sort of a set of built-in templates you can choose from. Let me just roll back a second. Like for those of you that are still sort of new to Quarto, when we're in this header, when we're in between these 3 dashes, the syntax in here is this thing called a YAML. And the way it looks is you have an option name, followed by a colon, and then you give a value. So like title is the name of the option. I'm giving it the value Charlotte Wickham. About is the name of an option, but about doesn't take a single value. It sort of takes a complicated set of values. So to set sort of sub values, you use indentation. So template is a sub option of about, and I've set it to holler. There are some other templates available. I like to use completion to find them. I just hit control space to get what the completions were. Let me show you trestles. Great, so all I'm changing is this template value. I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna re-render it. And you'll see what we get is like quite a different look. And it's not so different in the mobile view. But if you go over to the sort of desktop view, a full screen view, now we've kind of got this picture and info on the left and content on the right, whereas before it was more like picture and info at the top and content underneath. Okay, so I think that's all I wanted to tell you for now. I'm going to send you back to your breakout rooms. And I want you to play a little bit with index.qmd. So change the title and subtitle to reflect you. Try a different template, see if you can find one you like. You might have a look, there's a links option in that header. You might decide you want to add, edit, or remove some. If you need a challenge, add an image. And if you've got spare time, try editing the content of the page. Okay, so we'll send you back to your breakout rooms now. Hey, everyone should be getting plunked back in here. Just give her a second to get back. All right, welcome back. So I'd love to like get some, let me just say, did you get, I'm just writing something in the chat. I'd just like to get, can I get a rough, I've just added a question in the chat. Oh, it's not really a question because I forgot the question mark. Did you get some changes made? Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, depending on how that went. I'll get a thumbs up in there so you can just easily click it. Good, okay. Anything troubling TAs that you want to report back on? We're all going okay? Or
No, I
Priyanka?
think everybody was able to run through and make changes. One issue, only one issue we faced was, if there's any extra space that comes up, then it doesn't allow you to run YAML. But that was a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
exercise. We didn't see any
So
space, but we figured out I had a hack for that. I've run into it a lot.
yeah, yeah. So that is probably the hardest thing about Quarto, like across the board, is that YAML is real precise, and if you've got a space where you shouldn't, or you don't have a space where you should, you can run into trouble. You'll see sometimes I'm using quotes. Quotes are safer than not using, but you can get a lot away with a lot of things without quotes. Often putting quotes around something is the way to solve a problem. So just keep that in mind. Generally, you'll get an error that sort of says something about YAML. That's telling you it's something about those options. Okay, and images, yeah. So I actually thought that images would be a bit of a challenge. So I was going to quickly demo that just to see, just so you can see how that works, because there's sort of a lot going on when you're trying to change an image. So in the YAML, you can see there's this thing called image, an option called image, and it looks like it's giving a path, right? A file path. And in Quarto, file paths are usually relative to the file you're in. So we're in index.qmd. Profile.jpg is going to be interpreted as relative to that. So it's going to look at the same, because there's no path or anything in front, it's going to look at the same level in the directory. So when we look at our project, right at the same level in this hierarchy of folders is profile.jpg. That's the profile picture that's being pulled into this website. So to replace it, we need to replace that file. It's also complicated because we're on cloud, so we actually have to like upload a file to cloud. There is this upload button. It's got a yellow up arrow. Let me just show you. I am going to choose a file from my desktop that I found on Unsplash this morning that I like the look of. So first I'm uploading it. Now it's in my files pane, and I'm going to do this in a kind of lazy way. I'm going to delete the profile.jpg that's there, and I'm going to rename this one to profile. You got to be a little careful if you're thrown in a PNG there. You want to keep that extension, but you'll need to change it, right? So this file name here needs to match that file. It looks like Quarto was doing a bit of work there, but it didn't look like it previewed very nicely. So let me just rerun that preview. That's the picture I thought, oh, that's a nice picture. So that's enough to change a picture, right? We're just replacing that JPEG. The alt text is what's available to screen readers. So a description for people that can't see the image. So you'd probably want to change that too. So links and forest maybe. And you generally want to credit where you've got it if you've got it from somewhere like Unsplash. So I should update that. I'm just not going to do it right now for the purposes of time. Okay, talked about that. So we've got like a homepage, like that's, I hope you're convinced that it's relatively easy to get yourself a reasonable homepage set up, but most of the time when you've got a website, you don't just want a homepage, right? Like you want some other content up there. So how do you add pages to a Quarto website? I'm going to show you this by sort of demoing adding a page that might document the projects that I've worked on. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to create a new Quarto document. Lots of ways to do this, but I'm going to go File, New File, Quarto document, and I'm going to create an empty document. I also am not going to use the visual editor, and I'm going to remove that setting. Okay. All I really want is a Quarto file that's going to have a title. It's going to be project, and then I'd write some stuff, right? Like here are some projects I've worked on, and then the hard part of making a website happens because you've actually got to come up with some content. Right, my shortcut keys went a little bit faster than they should have. But I'm going to save this file. And this is sort of the first decision that comes up when you're adding a page to a Quarto website. Where you save this file is going to be reflected in where the file's available in terms of its URL on your website. So it's a Quarto file, so I'm going to call it projects.qmd. And I'm, for illustration purposes, just going to save it here, like at the top level of this website project. I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to render it. And this is a little hard to demo on cloud, but I'm going to pop this open in a window, and I'm just going to show you this URL up here. And this URL is awful because it's on Posit Cloud, right? All of this, most of this URL is just like, we're on Posit Cloud, and this is your project, and this is some kind of unique identifier to make sure you can look at it. So everything before projects.html will be eventually your website root. So the reason I'm telling you this is that what I want to say is the structure you impose on your files and folders in your website project, that's going to be directly reflected in the URLs. So if I save a Quarto document at the top level of my website and it's called projects.qmd, people are going to visit it by going to your website and then /projects.html. If I put it inside a folder called projects, then they're going to have to go to your website /projects / whatever I called it. So if people had this URL, like if you shared the URL with projects.html on the end, they could find this site, find this page. But if they're just sitting on your homepage right now, it's not obvious that it exists. So sort of there's two steps here. One is you create a Quarto document in your website project. That makes sure it's available somewhere at a URL, depending on that file and folder structure. And then the second thing you have to do is add it to navigation, right? We've got to give people some way of finding this file. And that brings us to sort of one of the other key files in this project, _quarto.yaml. So I'm going to open that up. So the extension here, .yaml, just means everything in this file is in that YAML syntax. So all those spaces, colons, indentation, all really important in this file. _quarto.yaml is a very specific file name, and it's the file name that Quarto looks for that sets up a project configuration, a Quarto project. So the fact that this file exists tells Quarto this is a Quarto project, not just a collection of Quarto documents. The fact that the first two lines say project type website tells Quarto that this is a website, not some other kind of Quarto project like a book or a manuscript. And then this file's got this website key. This is where general website setup goes. These are the options that control the website setup for Quarto. So you can see things like there's a title here. If this was my personal site, I would probably use my name. Maybe you have some kind of cool name for your website. You can see things like I've turned off search here. I've kept Open Graph on. That's what gives you those nice little image previews when you post in social. There's a footer that it's been set. And then the thing that's sort of interest to us right now is this item called navbar. So in a Quarto website, you build all your files. So you sort of build the content and structure of the website just by putting Quarto documents inside the website project. But you add something like navigation inside this _quarto.yaml file. So there's an item called navbar. It's already got something in it, right? It's already got this write text home. And that's what's giving us that home link in this navigation. Adding something to navigation is as simple as just saying where the Quarto file is. So I wanted to add my projects.qmd file to navigation. I'm adding an item that looks like a dash space, and then where does it live? It just lives at the top level in a file called projects.qmd. And that is enough, I open that up big, to give us this projects link now in the nav. So home takes me back home. Now there's this projects link. I can see it's there. That takes me to my projects page. Okay, that's what I wanted to talk about there. Yep. Okay. I'll just skip those examples for now. So I'm going to get you to try that. I want you to add a page to your website. So you could do what I did and kind of just add a placeholder for something you want on your website. If you have a QMD document somewhere else that you want to put on your website, like pull that in, upload it. I want you to add a link to navigation. And then once you've done that, have a look at this website. This is the Quarto Docs website, help for website navigation. Just have a skim of that. Have a look at the section headings and see what else is available. So the question for you is like, what other types of navigation are available? Okay, so off you go back to your breakout rooms, and I'll see you in about 8 minutes. Okay, so welcome back. I always knew that a website in 1 hour was going to be a push, but I hope we're doing okay, right? Like you actually have a lot of what you need to know to build a website in Quarto, right? It's basically a Quarto website is a collection of Quarto documents. So if you know how to create them, that's the sort of first step of it, and then controlling the website in that _quarto.yaml file. So that's used to control navigation. And if you had a chance to look over in the docs, there's the big options for navigation are this top nav bar that we've been using. There's another one called sidebar. Sidebar doesn't have this concept of left or right, so it's just sidebar contents. And that does navigation in a slightly different way, right? Instead of a bar along the top, it just does a bar down the side. Like that's the only difference. The nice thing about sidebar navigation is you can nest things. So you can have quite a complicated nesting on the left-hand side. And in fact, wait, where's the link I sent you to? This link. The Quarto Docs website, like this is an example of sidebar navigation on the left here. It can get pretty complicated with those sidebars. And this also happens to have a top bar navigation. And if you've ever been on this doc site and you go to like reference, you'll notice the sidebar navigation changes. So when you have a top navigation that takes you sort of to different sections of the website where each one has a different sidebar, that's something called hybrid navigation. So if you want to learn more about top nav, side nav, or hybrid nav, that's all covered on this navigation page. The other thing this navigation page talks about is sort of all these other little things that you can add to pages, like the page footer. That's kind of what's happening right at the bottom of a page, or these back and forward arrows, things like these GitHub links, like those are all talked about on this navigation page. And they're pretty much all just a matter of like adding to this _quarto.yaml file. I'm going to go back to the navigation we had before, not quite the navigation we had before. Going back to a nav bar, I'm going to put my links on the left. And I don't actually like having that home link there because you can actually always click on the title of the site there to get home. So I like to have it something like that. Okay, so that's a little bit about nav. I've got to go back a few ways. Okay. About 7 minutes left. So let me give you the overview. The one thing I really want to do before we leave is actually publish our sites. So let me sort of be brief about the style. Style here means like all the visual things that aren't just content, right? Like what color are the headings and what fonts are being used and what is the color of the spacing or the sizes, right? That's all sort of the styling. The easiest thing to do is in _quarto.yaml, you'll see right at the bottom, you can also set things that apply to format. So if you're used to Quarto documents, you're probably used to seeing format HTML and then setting various options. So you can do the exact same thing in Quarto.yaml and it applies to all your files. So the easiest thing to do is just to set a different theme. And there's a set of built-in themes you can choose from. The sort of next level of customization is to use a built-in theme, but then apply some of your own styles on top. And that's what this template does. The nice thing about Quarto is it sets this up in a way that you can kind of use variables to set these rather than having to dive into CSS. So just know you can do that. There's a lot of customization available to the style, and it's actually a little bit nicer than just straight CSS. Okay, but let me show you what it takes to get your website live so other people can see it. So I'm back over in my project. If I'm happy with my website, it's a little bit sparse, but let's go ahead and publish it. I'm going to go down to the terminal tab and I'm going to run Quarto publish. And if you just say Quarto publish, Quarto will bring up a list of all the things it knows how to publish to. So you can see the list there. There's things like GitHub pages, Netlify. Those are really good other options, but I'm going to show you Quarto Pub because that's what I had you set up. And it'll ask you to authorize. So it says in order to publish, you need to authorize. Make sure you're logged into the correct Quarto account in your web browser. So I'll just check that I am, in fact, logged into Quarto Pub. I am. Okay. And then I say yes. And it will ask me to go to this URL. And I will allow Quarto to publish to this account. And I can close that window and head back. And it's going to ask me the name. I'm going to call it my data science learning community workshop example. That's a really long title. Anyway. And Quarto does the work for you. It's sort of rendering that entire website. It's taking everything it needs to make that website and pushing it up to Quarto Pub. Just before I move away from this thing, I wanted to show you, you may have noticed this folder _site has popped up at some point. That's just holding kind of the local, all the files to create a website so you can view it locally. It's essentially that folder that gets pushed up to Quarto Pub. So we should be able to now go to this site. This is like a public URL. You can also go to this site. Let me throw it in the chat if I can find my chat window. Hello, chat window. There you are. Right, like this is a live website. It's like that, literally that one line is all you need to get it live. You could share that URL with people. They can see your website. So how are we doing on time? 12:56. So I had another your turn here, and I always knew that there was a bit of a stretch to get through it, but I would really love you to try publishing, even if all you do immediately afterward is delete it. Like if you're not ready for this to be out there in the world, you can go back to Quarto Pub and delete it. But it is nice just to feel what that process looks like. So I'm going to kind of make that a post-workshop exercise. One thing I did want to mention, because I think it's a really useful feature that a lot of people don't discover until they've been working with Quarto websites for a while, and it's this idea of listing. So if you go to the docs and read about listings, a lot of the examples are about blogs. Like blogs are an example of a listing, but they're also a really nice way to create lists of other things. So I have these examples these are websites that are out there in the world. Like they're a really nice way just to list all your projects or all your publications or all the talks you've given without having to like literally make a page for every talk you've ever given. So just know that they're there. They're really useful when you start to think about, oh, I need to have a page for like all my talks. Go learn about listings first. I sort of promised I would end on time because I know some of you probably have places to be. So I will wrap up for a couple of minutes, but I will stick around for probably about 10 minutes so I can take questions if you want to ask them here. I'm going to go backwards through these slides. So the first thing I want to say is I'm going to post some stuff in Slack that's kind of like the post work. If you do publish something and you want us to look at it, like share your URL, I would love to see what you've made. I will keep track of Slack. So ask questions in there. If like you've seen enough that you're like, okay, I want to build this, but I run into a problem, like ask. I will help you out. If you want to work on this sort of locally, so I'll say like Posit Cloud, we've used Posit Cloud today. just as a place where we can all have the same set of files to start with. We've all got the same set of RStudio, sorry, the same version of RStudio. We've all got the same version of Quarto. You probably don't want to keep working there. So I'll post some instructions about how to get your website off Posit Cloud and to get set up to work locally. And then there are other publishing methods. QuartoPub, simple, easy, quick. But if you're like a GitHub user, you might want to check out GitHub Pages. Netlify is another really nice way to publish things. So I'll post some instructions, post-work instructions on Slack a little bit later today. So to sort of wrap up, like a Quarto website, to create a website with Quarto, you actually only need 2 files. You have to have this _quarto.yaml, and it has to identify the project as a website. And you have to have index.qmd just to create a homepage. And that's it. And those particular files there are literally all you need, and you would have a web page. It would just be really boring. So you add pages by adding Quarto documents. So if you know how to create Quarto documents, you know how to create web pages. And then you control all the settings, navigation and theming in that _quarto.yaml file. There's a whole section of the website about it. So the really nice thing about Quarto websites is that if you know Quarto to generate documents, you don't really have to learn anything new to create pages in a web page. And you get a lot of nice features out of the box. So we've already seen, like, you get that nice mobile view, like just automatically. Quarto handles it for you. It's really easy to add links to GitHub, to get social cards, to do the nav. And there's a lot of customization available in the YAML options. And you can kind of customize style as much or as little as you want. Like, I know some people are like, just let me put in a theme name and that's it. And other people are like, I want to spend the next 3 days customizing CSS. So you can do as much or as little as you want. And that's it. So thank you for spending an hour with me. I hope you learned enough that you're convinced you might be able to get a website done with Quarto. Special thanks to Lydia for organizing. There's a lot of behind the scenes coordination that went along. Big thanks to our TAs as well. It's been great to have them helping. So I'll stick around for another 10 minutes and we can, if you'd like to ask questions, you're welcome to. Otherwise, ask questions in Slack and I'll see you on the Slack side of things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Charlotte. I wonder if anyone wants to give a virtual round of an emoji round of applause. We really appreciated this.
Could I ask a quick question? Or
Yeah,
maybe
go ahead,
not
Millie.
quick, but a question in general.
Sure.
So I have a website like using the whole like old like log down Netlify like method, and I want to do Quarto. Do you think have you had experiences like doing that transition, and if there are like any things that I should consider, or also just like wondering if I should maybe make a whole like copy over the content that I have, just like making a brand new Quarto website and then switching the URL that I have for it. Like what would you recommend?
Yeah, and so where is it currently hosted? Did you say Netlify?
Yeah.
And do you have like a custom domain that points to it, or you? Okay. Yeah. So I think those two questions, I think you can think about them mostly separately. So the first question is like, how do you go from blog down to a Quarto website? I personally don't have much experience with that, but I know a number of people have switched, and I can have a little hunt to see if I can find any examples and drop them in Slack, because people have blogged about that, I know. I think there are generally two approaches. One is you like literally take the .rmds that you have, convert them to .qmds, and like make it a Quarto website. The other approach is to sort of take what the product of Blogdown is, so actually take the HTML that Blogdown produces and sort of like just dump that somewhere in a new website. So it exists, but it's not like fully integrated, like, but it saves you having to re-execute or rebuild old files that, I don't know if you're anything like me, like trying to rerun some code I wrote like 5 years ago is always a pain. I think those are the options. The other option is like if you're not attached to the content, you start from scratch. Sort of, I don't know, it depends where you're at. But I can try and find some resources for people that have switched. And then I think it's probably you redeploy to like a new, you can keep using Netlify if that's what you're used to. Redeploy to a new Netlify and then reset up the custom domain to point to that new one. I think is sort of the easiest way to do it. And that probably means digging in on the Netlify or the Quarto Netlify docs. It's going to be specific to that scenario.
Okay. Awesome.
That's what I mean. Trying to think. I actually did this. Well, I did that step of it because my own website was hosted on Netlify, but I was using Jekyll. I don't even remember what my old website was using, but I switched to Quarto. I think on the Netlify end, I actually just took the Netlify project that was my website and repointed it at a new repo. So I had it pointing at a GitHub repo, and I pointed it at a different one, and that way I didn't have to deal with all the redirecting the custom URL.
Okay. Cool.
That part worked. Yeah, no worries. Other questions?
I guess I have a similar vein, except not coming from like a blog down Netlify. I'm coming from a WordPress website, and hosted on my own domain. It's using just like the WordPress, the like open source WordPress website builder. So if you have any resources for, I guess, sort of that transition, that would also be really helpful.
Oh yeah, no, I totally. I'm pretty sure there was a talk at PositConf that was like somebody that went from WordPress to Quarto. I'll just make a note, WordPress to Quarto, and I'll have a look at that. Those videos are coming out in the next month or two, so there should be hopefully a reasonable resource there. I do not know anything about it, but I know people have done it. So I'll see what I can find and see if I can find anything to point to going from WordPress to Quarto. I suspect like if WordPress can spit out Markdown, like it might be not too bad a transition, but I don't know. Any other questions?
I posted a lot of questions on Slack, so
Perfect.
I know that they are very specific, and I'm okay. I can wait or ask them on another channel on Slack. But the main one that I have, or I guess the two main ones that I have are, so if I want to publish on, what is it called? Posit? With you, what is the one called? With you is Posit, right? Posit.com? No.
Yeah, the Posit, well, so there's Posit's got a lot of things that can publish Quarto. So there's Posit, what we were using today as our kind of interface, the RStudio, like that was on Posit Cloud.
Oh, Posit, yeah, no, but because we get, what I have is GitHub. But which one is the one we use with you?
Oh, Quarto Pub.
Quarto Pub. Okay, so with Quarto Pub, how many websites can we have for free, or do we have to pay?
There is technically no limit. Like there is no published limit. I think if it suddenly happens that the websites that you own are like using all the traffic, like then someone might reach out and say, hey, like.
Okay.
But like honestly, if you're using it for like a personal website, like workshop websites, hosting slides, like none of those are going to generate enough traffic that Posit will ever notice or care. The other option that so it's sort of like a reasonable, sort of like one of those like we won't tell you a limit, but be reasonable. The other options, I think GitHub Pages is like if you're using that, like, I think that's what I use for most of my stuff. I use Netlify for a few things. The other option that's sort of coming along, but I haven't tried it with the Quarto website, is Posit Connect Cloud, which is a really confusing name because there's already Posit Cloud and already Posit Connect. And it's going to be sort of it's going to be, I mean, I think they would like to think of it as a replacement for QuartoPub, but I don't think QuartoPub will go away. It's like a more, what do I want to say? Sort of like taking what some of the features of Posit Connect are, which is not a, it's more of it's a professional product that you would install inside an organization, taking those features and making a more public cloud version of them. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah. So feel free to use QuartoPub as much as you can.
Thank you. No, and it's like you said, for workshops and that, because GitHub limits you to one, you just can have your one website and that's it, one page and that's it. I think, right? But sometimes so I have my own website, but I also have like sometimes teaching workshops, and I kind of want to create a website specifically for that workshop, and I don't want to follow like the template that I have on my website.
Right. And that's exactly how I use QuartoPub too, right? Like GitHub Pages is great if you have a project where you want the website, like the website's always going to reflect like the current state, and that's fine. But sometimes if you're dealing with workshops, you have a repo, but what you want is a different website every time you teach it. You want like a website specifically for the one you're teaching that they can go back to in 6 months and it looks exactly like it did when you taught. That is exactly where I use QuartoPub as opposed to GitHub Pages.
Exactly, because if not, it's gonna follow the same template that you have on your website. And I'm a very, I don't know, I get so hung up on on the aesthetics and how things look that I don't want necessarily to have to follow that template, right? So this is the answer I was looking for. So thank you, Charlotte. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm gonna let someone else ask questions. I am.
Right. And I'll probably repeat that answer on Slack just so other people can see it if they come across it. Any other questions?
Are TAs able to ask questions?
Of course, Colin.
Of course, great. So how do you embed this might be a little bit beyond the purpose of the presentation, so I can post in Slack later, but if somebody has another question about this, just jump over me. How do you embed Quarto presentations into your website?
Oh, yeah. So that's just like simply an iframe.
Oh, okay.
And I can, let me switch over. Let me just grab.
I mean, if the quick answer is a link to the docs, I'm happy to do that too.
No,
I don't want to dominate other learners' opportunity to ask you questions.
Let me go to the page here. I'm going to the GitHub for this site. So in materials.qmd, like this is literally where those slides are getting embedded, right? So I've got an iframe where the source is slides.html. And underneath, I've got a link to the slides.qmd. So slides.qmd is generating slides.html. That is enough to have that little, where was it? Back over here, that little preview. And then if people want to see it full screen, they can. That's a trick I learned off Mine Chinkai Rundown.
Thank you. I have a lightning talk next week and I'm trying to do that. So that's going to help out a lot.
No worries. All right, any other questions? Perhaps we'll call it then. So thanks very much for those sticking to the end, and thank you again to my TAs. You did a great job.